In the upcoming series of lessons, we'll examine the very important and often tested principle of parallelism. In short, parallelism is achieved when similar elements in a series are expressed in similar form. Consider this example of faulty parallelism. Maria enjoys swimming, hiking, jogging, and to ride a bicycle. Here we have a series of activities. The first three activities are expressed in gerund form, that is, words ending in ing. But the last activity is expressed in infinitive form. To have parallel structure here, all four activities in the series must be expressed in the same form. Now there are several different ways to achieve parallelism here. One way is to write, Maria enjoys swimming, hiking, jogging, and bicycling. Here, all of the activities are expressed in gerund form. Now it's important to note that parallelism is not restricted to individual words. For example, if one item in a series of similar elements is a prepositional phrase, then every item should be a prepositional phrase. If one item in a series of similar elements is a participial phrase, then every item in the series should be a participial phrase. If one item is a relative clause, then every item should be a relative clause, and so on. Okay, now let's look at another example of faulty parallelism. Jeremy claims that Naomi's beliefs are superstitions and detrimental to society. In this sentence, we have a series of two similar elements involving Jeremy's claims about Naomi's beliefs. The first element, superstitions, is a noun form, but the other element, detrimental, is an adjective form. To achieve parallel structure here, we must write both elements in the same form. One way to do this is to write, Jeremy claims that Naomi's beliefs are superstitions and detriments to society. In this sense, both elements are expressed as nouns. Or we can write, Jeremy claims that Naomi's beliefs are superstitious and detrimental to society. Here, in both instances, the elements are expressed as adjectives. Okay, here's another sentence to consider. The troubled teenager swept the floor hurriedly and with anger. In this sense, we have a series of two things that describe the manner in which the teenager swept the floor. The first element, hurriedly, is an adverb, and the other element, with anger, is a prepositional phrase. To achieve parallel structure here, we must express both elements in the same form. One way to do this is to write, the troubled teenager swept the floor hurriedly and angrily. Here, both elements in the series are expressed as adverbs. Alternatively, we could write, the troubled teenager swept the floor in a hurry and with anger. Here, both elements are expressed as prepositional phrases. Now, it's important to mention that when students begin working with parallelism questions, they often make the mistake of focusing solely on the endings of words. Consider this example. While preparing Pablo's latte, Beverly brewed espresso, steamed milk, and told jokes. Here, Beverly performed three actions while preparing the latte. She brewed, she steamed, and she told. Now, if you focus solely on the ending of each word, you'll see that the first two words end in ed, but the last word does not. However, it would be incorrect to conclude that this sentence has faulty parallelism. The elements here are indeed parallel. The fact of the matter is that each word, brewed, steamed, and told, is in simple past tense form. It just turns out that the simple past tense form of the verb tell is not telled, it's told. So just remember that the principle of parallelism is based on the form of each element, not how each element looks. Okay, now as you've seen so far, the conjunction and is a common keyword that tells you to watch out for parallelism issues. Two more common keywords are the conjunctions but and or. In addition to these conjunctions, you should also watch out for correlative conjunctions. These are conjunctions consisting of two sets of words. The most common correlative conjunctions are shown here. Now, when correlative conjunctions are used in a sentence, the elements involved must have the same form. Consider this example. Larissa will either buy a bookcase or she will sell her books. In this sentence, we have the either-or correlative pair, which means the part after either must be parallel to the part after or. In this example, the two parts are not parallel. The first part begins with the verb buy, and the second part begins with the pronoun subject she. So these two parts are not expressed in the same form. Now, there are several different ways to correct this. One option is to write Larissa will either buy a bookcase or sell her books. Here the two parts that follow either an or have parallel structure. Another way to correct this is to write either Larissa will buy a bookcase or she will sell her books. Once again, the two parts that follow either an or have parallel structure. In the first part, we have the subject, then a future simple verb, and then some object, and in the second part, we have the same form. Alright, let's remove all of this text and try another one. Not only did Felix apply extra deodorant, but he also polished his teeth. In this sentence, we have the not only but also correlative pair, which means the part after not only must be parallel to the part after but also. In this example, the two parts are not parallel. In fact, the correlative pair itself is broken. The first part of the pair is not only, but the second part of the pair is but he also. Now for starters, we could change the sentence to read, not only did Felix apply extra deodorant, but also he polished his teeth. But this sentence still lacks parallelism. Here the part after not only begins with the word did, followed by the subject Felix and the verb apply. The part after but also begins with the subject he, followed by the verb polished. As you can see, these two parts are not parallel. One way to fix this is to write, Felix not only applied extra deodorant, but also polished his teeth. Now the parts that follow not only and but also are parallel. They both begin with a simple past tense verb, followed by parallel details. Okay, let's examine three more sentences, beginning with this one. The answer choices for the multiple choice questions will be preceded by circles rather than by letters. This sentence uses the X rather than Y correlative. Notice here that the part before rather than is parallel to the part after rather than. Here, by circles and by letters have parallel structures. Okay, here's another example. Just as carrying heavy objects does not lengthen one's arms, so hanging upside down does not make one taller. This sentence uses the just as, so correlative. Notice that the part after just as is parallel to the part after so. First, carrying heavy objects is parallel to hanging upside down. And second, the phrase does not lengthen one's arms is parallel to the phrase does not make one taller. Okay, one last example. Neither the scowls from her neighbors nor the reluctance of her husband will deter Helen from painting her house pink. This sentence uses the neither nor correlative. Notice that the part after neither and the part after nor have parallel structure. First, the scowls is parallel to the reluctance. And second, the prepositional phrase from her neighbors is parallel to the prepositional phrase of her husband. Now, as an aside, please note that even though these two prepositional phrases do not contain the same preposition, these phrases are indeed parallel. Okay, so the big takeaway with all of this is that when we work with correlative conjunctions, the corresponding elements should have the same form. Alright, let's summarize. In this lesson, we learned some tips for achieving parallelism in a sentence.